dogs make the best companions for humans, this podcast aims to help make humans better companions for their dogs. Welcome to the Baru Podcast, a modern lifestyle podcast for dogs and their people. I'm your host, Charlotte Bain. I've been caring for other people's dogs for more than 15 years. And while I've learned a lot in my career, I definitely don't know it all. So I've collected an ever-evolving roster of amazing dog people. And I learn new things from them all the time. In this episode, I chat with Ellen Ballon Dante, the co-founder and CEO of Deity Animal Rescue here in Los Angeles. We chat about what a typical day looks like in animal rescue, and why even when the emotional toll of helping animals seems overwhelming, Ellen is determined to keep on helping as many animals as she can. She also shares the special place in her heart she has for helping unhoused people get the help they need for their pets. And why, if you've ever considered fostering or adopting a pet, now may be the perfect time. So let's jump into the chat.
I was born and raised here in Pittsburgh, and my mom is still in the house that we grew up in.
Cute.
I come back here as often as I can. And actually, when I'm here, I work with some of the shelters here. So,
oh, that's great.
Yeah. So, it's just, Lindsay and I kind of become bi-coastal.
Right. So. And then you bring the dogs back here, or you just work with them and kind of try to find homes for them back there? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I will just, be very clear as to which part of the country we are focusing on in that post and in those stories. And then, we're just very clear about that stuff. So
that's great. Well, yeah. Nice to meet you. And thanks for joining me. We did meet once many moons ago when there were fires. I can't remember which fires there were. And I brought some food to you guys. God, that seems like, I think it was like 2019, but it seems like it was like 15 years ago.
It was November of 2018.
Oh, was it? Okay. That makes sense.
Yeah. Yes. And I remember, and you were so sweet to bring that by. Thank you. I remember we did not leave,
You guys were working so hard. Yeah.
I mean, it was at the end of that, we just kind of looked at each other and were like, wow, like such an outpouring of support for everybody. So yeah, but we were just like, oh my God, how did this even happen?
Right.
It ended up being this drop-off point, but it worked.
But it worked. Yeah. Yeah, of course. I feel like I've been, watching your journey with Deity Animal Rescue since that time, and how it's grown. And I really I wanted to have you on because I really I admire so much what you guys do, and you have such huge hearts. And I wanted to know if you wanted to share kind of your journey with Deity with us, and kind of, how you got started, like what was your inspiration? I find that most people, when they end up working with dogs, it's because they had a particular dog that kind of either stole their heart or they had struggles with, or was it something more like you always knew you wanted to work in rescue?
Well, first of all, I want to say thank you to you for making, sure that we connected, and I'm to be here. So thank you. And yeah, for me, I feel like it's been a kind of a lifelong journey here. My mom is sitting here too.
Yeah.
And
hi, Mom.
We're very much partners in crime, which started at 5 years old for me when, we were going on family vacation and it was pouring down rain in South Carolina. And there's this minute puppy in the middle of an intersection. And she looked at my father and she said, "You will pull this car over. I am getting a dog." And I'm a 5-year-old in the back seat, wide-eyed. And she comes back to the car with this puppy wrapped in a towel. and she places that little tiny puppy in my lap. And that was it for me. I just remember looking at this dog and feeling just so humbled and so just like in that moment at that dog's, you know, I was that dog's, you know, service animal, so to speak.
Yeah.
And I think from that planted the seed for me.
Yeah.
Just went from there. And then when my son was born, I didn't have the time to volunteer at the shelters anymore and hold leashes at rescue events.
Sure.
So I had a jewelry line at that time, and I started designing a line to give back to rescues monetarily. But at that same time, I had gotten onto Facebook and kept getting tagged in all the urgent dogs in the LA shelters, primarily the county shelters. And, you know, during nap time, I would get on my computer and I would start networking these dogs. And I put together a GoFundMe and I called it the Shelter Pet Lifeline Fund. And I would do one dog here, one dog there, and I would fundraise for these individual dogs, enough money for me to get them out of the shelter, get their vetting covered. If I didn't have an immediate foster, I needed to have money to board them somewhere.
Right.
So it started out just kind of independently like that. And from there in 2016, my father had become ill and I was coming back and forth to Pittsburgh a lot. And my mother, who had always worked in a nonprofit with a nonprofit, she sat down with me and she's like, you know, you're doing this off of a GoFundMe. How great would it be if you became a legitimate nonprofit organization and a foundation? And we sat down and did the paperwork, and that was 2016. And then at the end of
2017,
my now business partner, Lindsay, I like to say that she slid into my DMs because
I'm like just learning what DMs are, by the way.
Well, for me, I was on Instagram. I had taught my Instagram, but I never knew there was like this secret other folder for DMs that you have to check, and it's not people that you follow or you know, you don't know them, and they slide into your DMs. And there's Lindsay, and she was just like, I love what you're doing. I'd love to help and volunteer in any way that I can. And being that I was back and forth so much from Pittsburgh, I was like, girl, yeah, please. And she just, you know, covered the rescue when I was gone. And when I got back, she had her own health scare of her own. And it just told her that, you know, like me, she was like, I think I'm here to be of service to others. And we had the conversation and she came on board and we partnered, and it has been this amazing thing ever since. So I feel very blessed.
Yeah, you guys do such amazing work.
Oh, thank you.
Rescuing and placing dogs in foster and adoption seems like it would be incredibly emotionally stressful. And I don't think people talk about how that can affect someone who's working with in that kind of an environment. So how do you self-care, I guess?
Oh gosh. So I guess first of all, I want to talk about compassion fatigue.
Yeah.
Because it's definitely a real thing, and it was never a term that I knew until recently. I am not real good at like knowing when I am hungry, when I need to go pee, like that I need a break until you're at that point where you're like, okay, I just need to step away. And that comes in the form of compassion fatigue. And Lindsay and I noticed that what happens is, luckily, we're kind of on different schedules with it. So we're able to kind of hold each other up.
Right.
And kind of take keep taking the reins back and forth from each other while the other person goes and has her moment of extreme tears or anxiety or whatever it is.
Right.
It never goes away and it never gets better. And when I think back to that little girl sitting in the car with my mom and dad and brother holding that baby puppy, and how my heart was exploding with such love and such emotions and such feelings, I need to be honest and say that now it is much more of a thing here
in your head,
process head that says you can't be that girl right now because you cannot be effective for these little lives that you're going to impact if you go to that place.
Right.
I have to put on my, brave face.
Yeah.
I save the tears because it's, this for me now, I am of service and I know too much. So I cannot turn away. And, it's just, that's a day-to-day thing for me. So it's when I sit and think about it, there are times that I do honor myself, and Lindsay and I both like let's go out to eat and let's have a cocktail and let's just enjoy an afternoon in Los Angeles where the weather's good. We feel blessed, just come off of a major, binge of rescue or whatever.
Right.
Let's let our hearts settle. And we're always like, why don't we do this more often? But I would say that it is definitely something that I'm willing to do and have no plans of walking away from, because the give back, is so great. The reward is so great.
The reward is so great. Yeah. So what does like a typical day look like in rescue for people who aren't familiar? How you acquire the dogs? What do you get? Who do you get calls from? Where do you find them? And if you have any stories that you want to share of a rescue that I'm sure there's a million of them.
I hear Lindsay in my head right now. Typical day. A typical day is eyes opening, usually around 6:30. I put my phone on silent throughout the night unless there's a sick animal, a sick puppy that I need to have one eye and ear open all night for.
Right.
Then the phone sleeps next to my head. But otherwise, I do try and at a certain point put the phone down and forget about it, because as a rescue deity, we are in direct contact with our fosters, with our adopters, with the shelters. My number, that's who we are. That is important to us, that we are accessible. And if there's an emergency, we want to know about it. Right. So, that is something that we do. But I'll open my eyes, I'll look at the phone, I'll scan the phone just to see if there's any fires that I need to deal with. And then get on the Instagram and respond to any fires there. From there, if it's a day that we're going to the shelter, it is kind of a mental, let's get in the headspace to go to the shelter. And I will meet and just kind of talk about let me back up. Yeah. Usually if we're going to a shelter, we have already been contacted by the shelter.
Okay.
There's a dog. So I'm going to say friends, because they are my friends with rescue coordinators. I'd like to think that a great working relationship with them. It's a very symbiotic thing. It to be. And we'll reach out with dogs that they feel are like our jam,
Right. Right. A good fit.
Yeah, a good fit.
Mm-hmm.
Each rescue probably has like their little niche.
Mm-hmm.
So we will get that text. I'll get that text. And if it's a dog that, we feel like we can help and we must have, then, we get on the website of that shelter and see who else is there that we take with us as well, that we at least meet. Usually we have our list and we get to the shelter and the rescue coordinator meets us and walks us through to meet all the dogs, brings the dogs out who we want to meet. We meet them at their kennel. We like to see how, they are in their kennel, how they do on their kennel walk out of the kennel to the area, the grass area.
If they're being reactive to other dogs, or if they're seemingly scared, or
everything. And that's another thing I feel like intuitively doing this work, you get like there's little nuances that maybe I can't even speak what they are, but like you feel the energy of the dog.
Right.
And granted, a shelter is not a good, right? I mean, they're scared.
Yeah, talk about that a little bit, because oftentimes when we see a dog in the shelter, they're under such an immense amount of stress that their behavior is not the same as what they would be if you brought them home and gave them a warm, loving environment. And sometimes it takes time for them to decompress from being in the shelter. But you want to touch on that a little bit?
Yeah. So I guess maybe it's just us, but we're always attracted to the dogs that are like pancaked to the floor. Right. And, just are so shut down, but have these like soulful eyes that are just looking to connect. We always feel like there's just such potential there, knowing that there's probably going to be this decompression period that will require a foster who is knowledgeable about that type of thing, as far as like giving the dog space to just kind of decompress. We always give our fosters crates and all the necessary tools. And definitely there is that neurotic speech that we give about, it must always have this martingale collar on with the tag on it. Like, don't ever take them off. You never know, a door could open,
Right.
And usually, those are the dogs that end up, once you give them that opportunity, are these, they blossom to like these amazing dogs that after a while gain their confidence and are just, so grateful that you gave them that opportunity. And then like our other favorite type of dog, like the mushy, gushy, wiggly people who you just look into their eyes and you know that this is a dog also so grateful that is just going to come out and steal the heart of so many. After, the shelters are good, they'll work with us and do assessments. Actually, most of the shelters won't let dogs over a certain weight limit go without a behavioral assessment. So we often
Interesting. I didn't know that, because of the potential for risk, or
because they want to know, they want to be able to feel good about saying this dog, they usually temp test the dogs with other large dogs. So they'll say dog is large dog friendly and will do well with children. And I think it's over the age of 12. Like that's literally the best assessment the shelter can give. So when we see that, especially on a big, huge, wiggly pit bull, that's a dog for us, because that's a dog we can help. And always the validation to us of knowing that like our gut instinct on that dog, like, oh my gosh, like we just pulled an ambassador for the breed.
Right.
And they're so happy and grateful. And they end up having their own Instagram accounts and like those, I would say those two dogs, that types of dogs, steal our hearts. And then there's all we're always doing seniors as well. Large,
Yeah.
small.
I love a senior.
Yeah. I mean, it doesn't matter what their medical is. It doesn't matter what they look like, how many teeth they have, how bad their breath smells, how much hair they don't have.
Right.
And for the dogs that we just don't want them dying, having their last,
few moments in the shelter. Yeah. Are there specific dogs that you see more of in the shelter?
It's always traditionally, Los Angeles, it's been pit bulls.
Mm-hmm.
I know that it used to be Chihuahuas. Now it is equally Huskies and Shepherds to the pit bull.
Yeah. Yeah, I've been noticing that. So many Shepherds. And I know Huskies are notoriously, they require a lot of exercise, and they're escape artists. So, I know that they'll get out of your yard and then run for 100 miles and end up somewhere completely different. So that one makes sense. But I'm curious about the Shepherds. Is there a reason why? Do you know? Or is it just?
I think Shepherds and Huskies, if you know the breeds, like they have that magic about them.
I love them. I know. Yeah.
That is for the very reason they are so loved. It's also the thing that gets them,
right.
It becomes too much for people to handle, I guess, or they escape. People get tired of going and looking for their dog. But definitely we used to see more Shepherds, like I feel like in Lancaster, than we did here in the city of LA, but over. So I don't really
have the answer to that. Yeah. I know that the shelters are kind of overwhelmed right now and that's because everyone's returning their dogs essentially. Is that what's happening? Or can you touch on why we're seeing such an overwhelm of dogs in the shelters right now? And it's been happening. I know it's across the country, but it seems like Los Angeles is exceptional at the moment.
It really is. It's daunting. It's so hard to even open my phone in the morning and to see every tagged on. A lot of it, I think too, over COVID, during COVID, when everybody was home and we had the luxury of being able to clear shelters and dogs out as soon as they came in, and people were home, so they would foster the dogs. That really helped so much. But you're right, like now nobody, everybody's kind of gone back to their life. It's definitely a question of spaying and neutering, and also, just different ideals on whether or not you spay and neuter your dog. Some people feel very strongly that
one way or the other. Yeah.
So then you end up with these dogs who are running the streets, making more and more babies, and we just cannot keep up with the influx. Our kennels now are in the shelters are 2 dogs, 3 dogs deep. The little dogs, you might see 4 or 5 dogs in there. And they're definitely having to euthanize perfectly adoptable dogs for space. And it's just within talking to, other rescues that we're close with, it's like, you talk about that compassion fatigue. That's
right.
Because you never really feel like you're making a dent. And, it's just trying to keep up with resources. In fact, there was an article that just came out about LA City shelters and, just that they're so overcrowded and that the dogs aren't getting out for walks, and it's a resource thing. And then it trickles down to the rescues, that there needs to be more rescues pulling these dogs, but it's also the same on our end, we need the fosters. Fosters are gold to us, because if we have a place to move the dog, to get the dog out of the shelter and put the dog in a foster, that makes room for the next dog coming into the shelter.
Do you want to briefly, for people who've never thought about fostering or adopting, what is required of a foster, and what does that look like?
Sure. So, dog fosters are people who are willing to bring a dog home for X amount of time. I mean, some of our dogs get adopted before they even hit the foster. You know, we're constantly posting them on social media. We get them up on Pet Finder. We just get them seen as quickly as we can. And then there's the dog that, like, for whatever reason, nobody seems to be interested in. And we've had dogs in fosters for months. And, you know, a foster can say, okay, well, I have this amount of time I can commit to, you know, I will be available to you until we go on vacation, August 16th. And then at that point, like, we're like, okay, well, this dog will probably be adopted long before then. Or if we feel like the dog might be around longer, we know that we're going to be moving that dog August, or just finding another foster altogether. We do supply all of the supplies and materials that the fosters are going to need. Collars, leashes, tags, beds, crates, dog food, toys. They are vetted before they go to the foster. And if at any time while they're at the foster home, they need to see the vet, we cover that. We have accounts with probably a vet near them. So it's basically, they provide the cozy spot in their home and the TLC, and, you know, we cover the rest. So,
and on the flip side of that, what's a foster fail on the happier side of that? And how often does that happen?
It happens. It really does.
Yeah.
I mean, I will say it is kind of bittersweet for us, because actually we just had one of our longest term fosters who we would take, like, our biggest, like, scariest, you know, we'd always be like, oh my God, this is a dog for Jenny, and know that we bought. She just foster failed on a dog named Chopper. I haven't even posted it yet. But we never thought it would happen. And we're like, you know, our group text is like, we're all doing happy dances and, you know, we're checking in. We're like, Jenny, how does it feel to actually, like, be able to call this dog your son? And she's like, I'm crying, you know. So we really love our foster fails.
To clarify what that means for people, a foster fail means that you've decided to adopt the dog that you're fostering.
Yes.
Right.
And
yeah.
Please give our fosters kind of first rights or first dibs on the dog that they have.
Right.
Because I personally, my dogs are running around here somewhere.
I was going to say, how many times have you fostered?
I have 7 dogs at my house. And they're foster fail, but, you know, I also have now a 15-year-old son. So with the number of dogs that we were fostering, there was a couple of times the dogs that he just couldn't part with. And, you know, I was like, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we always have, you know, my dogs are little, my personal dog. Currently we have she's a foster. I have not yet called her a foster fail. And she is a senior pit bull. And Lindsay is always like, oh, we got an application on Layla.
And you panic a little bit.
You mean my dog? In all honesty, it has just not worked out.
Right.
Yeah. And she will probably never leave my house. I'm just saying that.
Right. Right. Did you bring one of them to Pittsburgh?
I brought 2 of them. Yeah.
You brought 2 of them. Oh, hi.
It's Chloe.
Oh my gosh. Yes, I've seen that one. I love that one. Hi, Chloe.
Very pretty.
And oh my gosh, she's very pretty. Look at those long ears.
Yes, and she's about to get groomed. Her little sister, Sugar, here. Shuggy came from
oh my gosh,
pulling this major pit bull, and
oh my gosh,
these girls walked up with this little dish towel, and in the towel was Sugar and her sister. Were flea and tick infested to the point where I wasn't sure that, you know, we weren't sure if they were going to make it.
Oh gosh.
So they came home with me once they got out of the vet, and the sister got adopted right away. And this is my son's dog. So.
Oh, so cute. How old was she? Just a baby when that happened?
Oh, she was maybe 6 weeks old.
Oh gosh,
Yeah.
yeah.
And now she's
Got it.
4 and Chloe's 5. So
So cute. Do you have a favorite rescue story that you want to share?
sure. So a favorite rescue story. I would say, I mean, I love them all, and
Of course.
definitely this one kind of, is on the top of my mind. I get this WhatsApp, which I'm not on WhatsApp a lot, but this WhatsApp came through from a friend in San Diego, and it's this video of these dogs in an RV, and they are so overcrowded. There's so many of them, and they like can barely move, and they're in the front window of this big RV. And I showed it to Lindsay, and she gives me these eyes, which, like in our dynamic is funny because she's kind of like, she's the one who's got 2 feet on the ground at all times, and the head on the shoulders, and here's me, and I'm always like flying around somewhere, trying to do something that she may not have tried to do. So
Right.
she's just looking at me, and I'm like, what? I'm like, we need to go help these dogs. And I happened to have dinner with a very good friend of mine that night. And she's an investigative reporter. And she's like, well, and Lindsay was fine with it. She's like, my friend and I ended up like going down to the RV and knocking on the door and saying, listen, like, we're not here to hurt the dogs. Please let us help you. And we all went down, Lindsay and Lisa and I, with my car filled with crates to take these dogs. Mm-hmm. Initially, she only wanted to give us, I think, 6 of them. What had happened was...
How many? So it was like a hoarding situation?
It was a lovely woman.
Yeah. I was going to say, how do you navigate her emotions around something like that? That has got to be incredibly difficult for her.
I could get choked up just thinking about her in this, even still, because I know how hard that would have been to have to give up her babies. But, what happened was at the start of the pandemic, she went unhoused and started living in this RV, and she had 3 dogs. Actually, it may have been prior to the start of the pandemic, but she started with 3 dogs, and they were not spayed or neutered because she didn't have the money to do it. And she also thought if she took them to the shelter, they would take the dogs from her.
She was fearful, of what could happen without knowing that the options were probably there for her.
Yeah. And so when it ended up happening, these dogs just kept breeding, and she would feed them before she fed herself. But there's no way to, walk. At the time it was 8. The day that we pulled the dogs from the RV, we took 18 from her, and there were 4 pregnant females who within the next 2 weeks all gave birth to either an additional 4 or 5 puppies each. Legally, because we had to involve LAPD and we had to involve animal control, who were lovely, and they were actually, interpreting for us and everything. I couldn't, it was just, it ended up being, everything worked out, and she legally is allowed to keep 3 dogs.
Okay. Yeah.
So she let us spay and neuter the 3 dogs that we ended up taking to our vet. They spent a week at our vet, and then she was allowed to take those dogs back. And then we actually received a grant from Stand Up for Pits, which is
fantastic.
Yeah. I mean, she does pit bulls, but she's like, these are honorary pit bulls. I'm going to give you a grant to spay and neuter all of these dogs. So that was so helpful. So all of the dogs that came from the RV are now spayed and neutered, all adopted out, and she has her 3.
Right.
Actually, every once in a while, she'll reach out if she has a medical emergency, and I'm happy to send her to our vet, and he treats her dogs for her.
So you keep in contact. Do you keep in contact with a lot of the
Yeah.
people who you rescue dogs from, and even if they're their own personal dogs, and build relationships with them if they need you?
Yeah, we do. With the beginning of the pandemic, and seeing how so many people were choosing to go unhoused in order to keep their animals.
Yeah, it's a big thing. It's a big issue.
Yeah. So we started an Amazon wish list and also did like a medical fund. So to do these pet pantries. Around town, there's a lot of these free fridge locations for humans. We'll just fill up the fridges in the little nook that they have there. And we supply the pet supplies there. And also they'll reach out to us if they have a dog who needs vaccines. Or I just got a call last week from this woman who, you know, she told me her address and it was the red tent down the alley, but her dog is her everything. It's this little haired Chihuahua named Queen, and her dog is the queen. But she had,
I think just a lot of people don't realize that people who are unhoused, their pets keep them going. That love that they have for their pets gives them purpose, gives them companionship. A lot of people poo-poo it when they see somebody on the streets with a dog. And oftentimes those dogs are incredibly well cared for and really loved.
Yes.
So
we help this other man. His name is Dallas. And we also met him, Daisy, his beloved Daisy, who he went to the shelter and raised since she was 8 weeks old as his service dog. And he has medical issues, and she has just saved his life a couple times now. But she recently passed from cancer. And I said to him, he's like, is there someone I can foster? And we had just pulled a couple of dogs that day. And there was one dog who was absolutely perfect for this situation. And the next day, the next morning, we showed up with Becky, and he met us outside basically with tears in his eyes, and he fostered her. She was adopted about 2 weeks ago. He was there to hand her off. And ironically, at the same time, we were surrendered a little puppy. And he had said that he really wants a puppy that he can train to be his service dog.
Right.
And I sent him the picture of the puppy, and I said, I don't know if you're ready. I don't know if you want an 8-week-old puppy. He called me. He goes, he said, Ellen, I am more than ready. He said, you know, because even from the beginning, he's like, I want to get a puppy. And we're like, all right, well, here's Becky, who's a 6-year-old grown up. He did it anyway. But so he adopted the dog, and they are doing so well together. He is training this dog to be his service dog. This dog goes everywhere with him, on the bus, everywhere. And we are taking care of all of the vaccines and his neuter and all that stuff. And we're happy to do that. Right. And that's one less dog that A, ended up on our streets, and B, ended up in the shelter. And he's going to have this wonderful life with Dallas, who is now actually in housing.
Oh, he is? Oh,
yeah.
Yay. That's fantastic.
Yep. There is a foundation called LASA, which works with our community, and they got him into housing, and he can have his dog. So it's perfect.
That's fantastic. I think about Dallas. I do since those posts. Yeah.
He's such a good man. He's such a good man.
Yeah.
I love that.
If people want to, what advice do you have for people who are looking to adopt or even foster a dog?
I would say, you know, follow your gut on that. Like if you feel like it's time to try that, don't think
Yeah.
hard about it. Just, give it a try. I think people tend to overthink a lot of things and then they talk themselves out of things.
Right.
There, at least in my world, is no greater reward than knowing that you have helped to save a life and literally
Mm-hmm.
like choosing to foster and coming and letting that dog come and stay with you at your home. You're doing exactly that.
Yeah.
I would say too, if you can't foster, because I know that not everybody can. I mean, some people just aren't home enough, or they have dogs that are reactive to other dogs, whatever the situation is. There is always something you could do to help, whether it is sharing a post, commenting on a post,
Mm-hmm.
tagging friends in a post who might be interested in a certain dog. Always we do our little $5 Friday things.
Right. I was going to say support financially because you are a nonprofit and that's how it keeps you going.
Totally.
Yeah.
I mean, and when you break it down to it being like even less than a cup of coffee these days at Starbucks, so,
Yeah.
always financially, because even if we don't have a foster in the
Mm-hmm.
moment, I will specifically fundraise for a night at our vet in the suite to, board the dog at $21. The dog is out of the shelter. The dog is safe. We do have an issue with pulling dogs that we think are going to end up in boarding for a long time, like, major behavior dogs.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have the funds to start board and train with that dog. I'll specifically post for that because
Right.
we're not going to just leave a dog to languish in, at the vets and have no plan for the dog. But
Right.
I have no problem sending a dog, setting a dog up on a dog bed with Rick at our vet, takes the best care of them for a couple of nights. And I specifically will fundraise for. So that, like you said,
Mm-hmm.
that helps immensely. And yeah, I guess just spreading the word, I do you said something earlier. I really do believe that people just don't know. They know that our shelters are kill shelters. No matter
Mm-hmm.
what is out there about the shelters, they are kill shelters. They have a number of dogs that they can have. If they go over that number, they have to euthanize. If a dog is there for longer than a certain period of time and they legally don't need to hold that dog anymore, they will euthanize. If the dog, it's just.
Do you know what that period of time is these days?
I believe so. If it's a dog that has a chip, I believe it's 10 days. They have to by law hold that dog. So in order to give the owner the opportunity to find the dog and come get the dog.
Mm-hmm.
If the dog does not have a microchip, I think it's 72 hours, 3 days. Mm-hmm. And this all could have changed at this point. I'm not sure. But initially when I started doing this work, that's what I was told. But the good news is the networkers and the rescue coordinators will start networking the dog right away.
Right when it hits the shelter. Yeah.
Yeah. As soon as they can get the information in and gets to know the dog a little bit detail wise, they will send us an email. So at least the dog will get on people's radar. And often when we call, what happens is, we'll call with the ID number and see if the dog's available. They do tell us that, this dog is not available for another 5 days. So we'll keep that dog that we're interested in, here's the date that the dog becomes available. We know that we can either go to the shelter, get the dog, or even call it the day before. And if the dog the owner may have gotten the dog, but we do try and keep tabs on
Mm-hmm.
you know, the dogs that we would like to bring into the rescue before they're available.
Right. I want to touch on something that you said, that rescuing or fostering, knowing in your heart that you've made a difference in this dog's life, or that you've changed this dog's life in some form or another. But on the flip side of that, I don't know anyone who was adopted, or I don't know many people that foster, but I don't know anyone who, and I'm sure that it's the same for that, but whose dog hasn't changed their lives, who hasn't come into their lives, someone who's rescued a dog, whose dog hasn't come into their lives and changed it in the cases that I know for the good, in many of those situations, become, taught them about love, and taught them about loss, and taught them about all sorts of amazing things, and in ways that you weren't expecting when you just went out to get a dog. So,
yep, totally. I totally agree with you. It's like you look in their eyes one day and you're like, I am a changed person because you exist.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I think maybe too, like for some people that even touches them too closely, right? Like they don't want to,
scary.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
scary, too intimate, it's much of a reality and a mirror onto their own life. And so, yeah.
I remember when I rescued my dog, now I have to share my quick rescue story. When I got my dog, 14 years ago, he's 14 now. He was 13 years ago. Yeah. Like I went to full-fledged panic mode for like 2 weeks. I literally just stared at him, and I was like, oh my God, I don't have any idea what to do with you. What do you want from me? Like, I don't. It was straight panic. I'd never cared for anything before in that way. So I think it was, and then literally he became my soul guide. Like literally as soon as I was like, oh wait, you like, we're in this together, and then like, he's just guided me on this whole crazy journey over the last 13 years. And I don't know who I would be, or, where I would be without him, because he changed the whole course of my life. So I know that's an extraordinary story, but I hear it from so many people.
Totally. And I will say too, and I'm going to get a little hippy dippy, but
get hippy dippy or hippie up in here. Yeah.
Point, I've earned the hippy dippy. Just being around the dogs in the quantity that I have, mm-hmm. and seeing what I've seen, and just like what they know, and mm-hmm. how they communicate with each other. And, they're just in a next level. Like they're in and we're just like their little, unfortunately we're the ones in control here, but like right. they are so beyond us. It's mm-hmm. unbelievable. And it just makes me so sad every time we have, by the hands of man, either by not spaying and neutering,
right.
but, these dogs running wild, but running loose in the streets, getting hit by a car, losing their life that way, or because we have to euthanize in the shelters, or mm-hmm. even one more, not vaccinating our puppies. That's another thing. And that's another part, again, I think that's education, that's educating the people. And it's also providing that free or low cost option for them to do it. And that's why we, try and help as much as we can with that, the community's pets, because to bring a puppy into this world and then just lose that dog so brutally,
right.
From either parvo or distemper.
Right.
I mean, that honestly, Lindsay and I talk about, like at the end of a really stressful day, we will still always say, well, at least nobody has parvo or distemper, because that's the stuff that really messes us up.
It's such a simple thing. Like dogs need their core vaccines.
Yeah.
Puppies need their core vaccines. Point blank.
Yep.
Yeah.
And we are happy to help,
Yeah.
I mean, for us is something that is an easy do. So
yeah.
So.
Well, Ellen, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me. You live really close to me, I think. I saw you at Whole Foods the other day. Yeah.
Oh, really?
I think that's Ellen from Deity Rescue.
Oh, yeah. Well, now say hi.
Now I will say hi since we've had a proper introduction. Yeah, for sure. Okay, well, enjoy your day. Thank you so much for listening. You can pop on over to deitydogsandgoods.com to see ways that you can help or check out their adoptable dogs. This was episode 10, you guys, and I want to thank you so much again for sticking with me on this journey, and I hope that you enjoyed these episodes. I love feedback. If you'd like to share any feedback, any ideas on future episodes, or even your own story of dog companionship, you can email me at charlotte@thebaru.com. And as always, you can follow the Baru Podcast wherever you get your podcasts and on Instagram at Baru Pet. Let's chat next week.